It's basically in three parts. It is product overview, a design and a solution, and then a demonstration of how easy that solution is to deploy. At InfoComm, we can see the things in action. You want to go see the product owner for Automate VX? He's down in the booth. Let me introduce you to him. I'm always open for feedback. I expect this to evolve. It's one of the reasons I kind of insist on working trade shows.
Hello and welcome to the Smarter Spaces podcast. My name is Ed Wank with Crestron. Earlier this year, we rolled out our Modern Workplace Certification Path, and now we're releasing an online version. How do we define modern work? How do we determine just what tech and training needs to be part of that curriculum? We're going to dig into those questions with Kyle Marls, Manager of Curriculum Development here at Crestron. Kyle, welcome. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. What is your background, first of all, Manager of Curriculum Development?
Yeah, sure. So this February, I'll be at Crestron for 12 years.
Okay.
I started out basically working at a university as a programmer. I was a CSP for a while, moved on to one of our big dealers as a field engineer. I came to work for Crestron as a tech support / trainer. And so I kind of moved up through the ranks over the years to make it into the management of all the curriculum and video content.
What does your job entail? What do you do during the course of the year?
So I oversee all curriculum. So dates to classes come across my desk. I get people time. I make sure it fits into the design of what we're doing, kind of in year-long initiatives. Video content, across my desk. YouTube channel, that's my responsibility. That's something relatively new to Crestron, is CTI now has their own YouTube channel.
So let's dig into the Modern Workplace Certification. How do we define modern work? What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. To me, it's an interesting conversation because hybrid work is here. Right.
Right.
If you want top talent, every study I read says you got to be offering hybrid at a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But the issues that come across are, how do people communicate? When you do go to the office, people are hoteling. How do you hold your meetings in ways that are meaningful with these remote participants?
Right.
So it's all about, I'll say, the experience, right? So if I have to go into the office 2 days a week and I need to talk to somebody that's remote, I go into a room, I need a system that's easy. I walk in, I push a button, I just connect an adapter and I can share. And that to me is what modern work is like an easy, seamless kind of bring everybody together experience. So, camera systems and sharing content is like key.
We need it to be as simple as it was for us. I'm assuming we're roughly the same age. As easy as us picking up the phone back in the day and chatting with somebody. We want that same kind of ease of intuitive experience, right? That's what we're after with modern work.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And we have another problem, though, because when it's one-on-one, it's fairly easy to see what I'm talking about, see what you're talking about, see your gestures, hear the little nuances and see the little nuances of human communication. But we have some remote workers and then a lot of people who are on site in a room. We have to be able to pick up all those visual cues as well, right? So that presents a whole other layer of challenge.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's where you see like the One Beyond camera systems and their intelligent AI was the last big release it had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the previous generation would listen to the microphone and then make a decision based on that which camera it should switch to.
Okay.
So the latest generation with the AI integration, it looks at your face.
Right.
So if you have the appropriate cameras in the room, if I turn, just like this, if I turn sideways and I was talking to somebody else, the remote viewers now see the side of my face. Like that's not a good experience, right? Yeah. So the new camera systems with face tracking then switch to a camera that's looking again at that person's face. So it's more engaging for that far end. They feel like they're in the meeting.
And we decided this was important enough to build a specific curriculum around, right? So why?
Yeah. So, again, it's just for, how do we bring people together? That was the big reason why, and this is a product line that is constantly evolving too. So we have to stay ahead of this kind of stuff. And this is where modern work starts to fit in. Let's say you came to the the IVCE, the engineering class for the One Beacon camera systems. It's a 3-day class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that product updates, almost every other month with some sort of new feature, right? Do I have to go now back to a 3-day class? Like, no, that's not an efficient use of time. So I think that's one of the areas modern work is really good, is it gives you all that context. It catches you up very quickly to what the latest and greatest is within our lines.
This certification is casting a pretty broad net as to who could attend, correct?
Yeah, that's very true. That was the scope I was given. Anytime I develop curriculum, the first question I ask is,
who's the
audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Just like I do in content. Exactly, right.
Yeah. And I was told end users, programmers, designers, dealers, so when you give me that broad scope, I have to keep it as very much an overview of what we can show. Okay. So that helped me kind of nail down the format of what I wanted to do with the modern work. So it's basically in 3 parts. It is, product overview. It is a design and a solution, and then a demonstration of how easy that solution is to, deploy.
Okay. We had good reaction at Masters. Had good reaction, obviously, at Infocom as well, I'm assuming. And now there's a push to put it online. Was that simply the motivation here, or was there something else that we needed as many people as we could to get their heads around this?
Yeah, well, no, it's kind of, I'm a victim of my own success, or Crestron's success, I guess. It was, it is funny, to me, it was Masters content. That's how it started. They said, I was approached, said CTI is now going to take over this Modern Work Summit that was previously handled by the TD Technical Group.
Right.
And, surprise, I should say, not a surprise to me, right? As a person who who develops curriculum, I know what people are after because I read reviews of every class. It's hundreds of emails that I get a day where I read what people are interested in and give us feedback. So I design based on that. So it being successful is not a huge surprise, but it did scale up a lot faster than I thought. Yeah, we sold out at Masters. So initially Masters, we were booked into one room. And it happened to be a space that was connected to 2 other rooms. We grew into all 3 of those rooms, and we just had to say, okay, stop. We've got a cap now. We've hit capacity. Infocom, same thing. We thought we knew what people would be interested in, and we absolutely sold out. The fact that I think we had, I forget the official numbers, but I think it was 15 people out of the couple hundred that registered chose to stay and do all of the modern work classes. So they were with us an entire day. And you think about a conference being like 3 days long.
Yeah,
you're willing to give me a day of that?
That's a big commitment.
Yeah, that's a really big.
And this is being offered, as we mentioned, people like sales folks and so on and so forth. So you did very carefully build the curriculum in order to appeal to as many people as possible, cast as wide as net as possible, as we mentioned. So how do you build that curriculum? Who is working with you on this? What are the steps in creating this course, this series of courses, rather?
Sure. So, maybe it's a bit of a secret, but all of the modern work content came from existing classes.
That's really interesting.
So all I had to do is
repackage things.
As soon as I determined as soon as I knew the audience, that helped give me the format. The 3 pieces I talked about, I could just go pull from existing content and say, put this piece here, put this piece here, kind of make it modular.
Right.
And that's usually my design approach in curriculum, is make it modular so that when things change, which they do at Crestron, I only have to update small sections, when, a good example is NVX 384 multi-view, that firmware came out, maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Sure. Yeah.
We have an NVX engineer class, an in-person 2-day class. Okay, well, we just update one of the exercises to use multi-view, and the day the firmware goes live, we already have the equipment in the class, and you can come see it. So that's a kind of a powerful way to develop curriculum rather than wait for like a total redo just because one thing changed.
Let's talk about the individual courses a little bit and just give me the Cliff Notes version kind of on what is covered for those who are interested in. This is your elevator pitch for each of the classes, I guess, kind of. So AV over IP technology, we've got audio and video and USB, right? So
correct.
Two primary areas of focus here, and dig into that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah. So one thing to understand is I'm feedback driven. I do like to know what's working, what's not working. And and some of the feedback we got actually from this course was there was no reason to separate them because, audio, video, and, USB, they're all NAX devices.
Right.
So they overlap anyway. So next year, we're not going to separate these. We're going to keep them all as one big class instead. So I think that's important to know about that curriculum, what's going to be coming out with it, So,
and you're focusing on the advantages of AV over IP over previous technologies, obviously, and how you can scale it and what benefits you can extract from that.
That's where NVX and NAX really, shines, I would say, is scaling. That's why it kind of end of life a lot of the old DM products, because if you bought an 8x8, did you always use all 8 inputs and all 8 outputs? No, and what happens when I want 9? No, that's an uncomfortable conversation you have to have now.
Right.
But with a network, it's just like, what's your switch capacity? That's what it becomes.
Mm-hmm. You also touch on AirMedia wireless presentation systems. What do you cover there?
Yeah, so there is the AirMedia experience and a lot of the stuff that's built into it that a lot of people didn't know.
For example?
So we have another class called Commercial Solutions.
Okay.
And anytime we launch a class, we pilot it internally. So we usually try to grab salespeople or engineers or somebody I think would be a good sample group. And when we ran it, I was surprised at some of the feedback of the salespeople that we pulled in. Said things like, I didn't know AirMedia could do that. AirMedia can turn on your television and lights? Yeah, that feature's been out for like 2 years. Where you been, I mean, I get it. They're busy. It's impossible to keep up. We have a huge product line. But so I got that feedback and it like surprised me. And I was like, oh, that's, maybe we need to focus this onto sales as well. So that's one of the other initiatives that I'm working on is educating even our salespeople and our dealers too on exactly what these feature sets are, because they're easy to miss. That's the thing, is because one of the neat things about Crestron is we do update our hardware and add features frequently and for free. So it's easy to miss.
Same holds true, I'm sure, for Crestron Flex conferencing and collaboration, correct?
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah.
And what's offered in that class?
So we go over some of our, Flex systems, a lot of the camera systems. The Mercury Mini is a very popular product. I have one right here on my desk. I'm just choosing to use a headset here for just to be able to hear a little bit better today. But normally I use my little Mercury here. This one happens to be one that works with Crestron Home. Right. So, I think everyone can tell, I am in my home office, but, I can control my shades and my lights and my audio and right there from my panel. So that it's those kind of experiences, I think, that are neat to communicate in these classes to make sure people see this bridge between the office and home and how seamless it can be.
And we touched on this earlier a little bit, designing for intelligent video, both with Automate VX and the cameras themselves. Give me a little bit of an idea of what the difference is, say, between a One Beyond camera by itself and an Automate VX being wrapped into the mix.
Yeah, sure. So it's basically, what is it you want the system to do? Because there are a lot of built-in features to these cameras that people would assume they would need the Automate VX software to do. Mm-hmm. So we basically explain the feature sets in the camera class. So one of the big things that you can do with just 2 of the cameras is presenter tracking. That only requires a certain camera model numbers, and you log into their UIs. We show it in the demonstration that's on the website right now for Modern Work, where you just point them at each other, and they're smart enough to figure out who's in the front, who's in the back, and you can create these tracking zones, like little boxes of an image. And that's all that's required. That's a 2-camera, simple system, easy to deploy. Like I said, if you go watch the video, it's like 15 minutes long. and it's like a
Right.
step-by-step to deploy.
Right.
But when you want to get into the more complex systems, if you want a conference room that does the AI speaker tracking, that
Right.
requires Automate VX, the software that's used to set up, and of course we have classes for that, but that's really what we were kind of defining in those two classes, like where the edges are of a big difference between configuration and more of a custom program solution. I even hesitate with the word program. Automate VX is not programming. It's still configuration. It's just a little more complex.
Gotcha. Have you gotten feedback about this training getting put into the real world and getting some results, say, for salespeople yet? Or
yeah, what we're going to do with it is we have the technical director group, and they are very customer facing. They're the ones packing up their demo kits and going out to dealers and doing the, like lunch and learns or the 1 day class, that kind of stuff. Modern Work fits exactly into that. When we did it at Masters, it was a 90-minute presentation because we did a lot more of the hands-on demonstration.
Right.
At InfoComm, we pared it down to 60 minutes with come follow us to the booth and we'll show you there. So these pitches can be, an hour long where we can really showcase our technology with designs. So yeah, the TD groups have been pretty excited to take these out and, able to give them, credit for one of the classes within the Modern Work certification by going out and doing these.
And you get AVIXA RU accreditation for this as well.
Yeah, if you complete the entire track, I believe it's 5 RUs. We've also partnered with AVIXA. So if you go to the AVIXA website, you can go there and you can take.
Cool.
Yeah, we gave them the Automate VX classes.
All right.
We also partnered up with Netgear. Netgear has the NVX classes. So the AB over IP and USB. You can go get those on their portal, submit to us, and get credit. So it's really helping us to branch out and leverage our partners too, to really rely on them. That's one of the things with like Netgear we've really started relying with them on is Crestron, we taught networking for years. That's a tough subject to understand and be able to teach competently. That takes a very special skill set. And I argued, like, why are we teaching this? Why not let Netgear do it for us? So that's what we've done now. If you go onto our website and you look at a class, one of the NVX classes, there's a section that says recommended learning, and we point you right over to Netgear and just say, learn from the experts. They're right over here. We use their gear in the class. You want to learn how to basic networking knowledge? Leverage our partner.
It's funny. We talk about content control collaboration. And content's pretty obvious. Control's pretty obvious. Collaboration, we think about collaborating among workers in a hybrid environment. But I think another aspect of collaboration that's always important is how well we collaborate with our partners, as you've just mentioned here too. I think that's really another part of this tentpole, that particular tentpole that makes a lot of sense. And are people surprised when they find out how much we do with other manufacturers, how much we're involved with other folks, you think?
I don't know if they're surprised, but I think it's a good experience.
Okay.
I think I'm going to pick on Netgear even more here. But
okay.
So in the NVX classes, we use Netgear switches. We are a reseller for Netgear. We sell their part of their AV line, and when they come into the classroom, part of our curriculum is, hey, watch how easy this is. It's a very small section. I'm not here to train on Netgear, but we show, when you get into network configuration discussions, we open up the Netgear Engage software and we go, look, you just do this, click, 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 and there's what it is that they've done a very good job of filling a demand in the industry. And that is making the AV configuration of a switch incredibly simple. So they have profiles.
Right.
Where essentially you just click a network port and you say, that's NVX. Apply.
All right.
And you're done.
So for our friends at Netgear, his name is Kyle, Marles, when you're making the checkout for
they know who I am, believe me. Yeah.
We'll call this in-kind advertising. But I think it's great that we're willing to talk about these folks as long as it improves the experience for the end user, as long as it improves the experience for dealer deployment, or whatever. I think it's really important that, that collaboration is top of mind. How do you see this evolving? You're seeing the feedback already. You're thinking about what to add or subtract from the courses, and how's that process going?
It's going, I mean, good.
Okay.
I can't give you any solidified plans yet, but I'll tell you what I'm pitching. These are my pitches.
Okay.
So people have said like the NVX classes should be combined. Fine, that's easy. We'll do that. Automate VX classes and the camera classes, that should be combined too. That's fine. I accept that feedback. It was the first time we ran it. Absolutely. The next thing I value is people's time. It's great that you're willing to spend an entire day with me to get through the entire modern work, but what about the people that now have already done that? What then? So, like I said, the product line is evolving. My curriculum is modular. So my idea is to have just say one class that you're already certified through modern work. Come to this one class where you'll get to see all of these products, and we'll catch you up real quick through the line. This is what's new. I can build on the knowledge that those people have, and I just give them the quick refresh. This is what's new. And if we do this typically at Masters, and we do this at Infocom.
Yep.
So at Infocom, what I kind of want to do is pair it with, thank you for renewing your cert. Let's go do a private booth tour. Right. So we can see the things in action. You want to go see the product owner for Automate VX? He's down in the booth. Let me introduce you to him. We can go down there and we can now see what I just told them has been updated in the line. At Masters, very similar. Masters is different because we have access to lab space. Mm-hmm. So what I would imagine doing in a lab is, let's pick on Automate VX AI face stuff, recognition stuff. Hey, here's what's new. This is how it works. Let's go have a fake meeting. Let's go down into the lab, because last year that's what we did is we had like a rectangular table set up with the cameras all around it so we could teach people how to make the software, work for that environment. But let's turn it into a demo space too, right? It's already configured. I got an expert instructor here that knows how to configure the system. We'd all sit down and you want to see how it works? This is how it works. So demonstrate it. I think that's a really kind of powerful idea. So I think that's my pitches at this point. If I can remember everything, I'm like the idea guy for sure for training. So I think that would be a good use of their time. Is let me catch you up fast. Let me give you a private tour. Right. Kind of I'll call it the white glove. Like you've invested your time to get here. Okay, cool. Let me show you some benefits. Let's get you through the booth and a private tour, because I work the trade shows every year. I'm the guy on the showroom floor. If I'm not teaching or monitoring class, I'm a floater. I can talk about anything, and I see those people come into the booth that are just overwhelmed. It's a herd of people, and like, how am I going to get any attention? So if I can go grab all these modern work certified groups, hey, you just did the update. Let's go to the booth and let's do a little private tour. I think that's a really good idea and a good use of their time, and value added.
Sure. That's terrific. So for more info, where do folks go?
The CTI training portal. That's the easiest place to go, is go to the dashboard there, and you'll see all of our offerings. Modern work is in the bottom right-hand corner, at least as of right now. Okay. That would be the easiest place to go there and see the latest.
My favorite question is always, what have we forgotten? What have we not mentioned here that we probably should have, Kyle, in your estimation?
That's a good question. This wasn't on the pre-listed questions you gave me.
I just want to make sure we covered everything before I let you go.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I'm always open for feedback. I expect this to evolve.
Right on.
I like to know what I'm not doing right. That's, I told you I've been at Crestron almost 12 years. That means I've been out of the field for 12 years.
Right.
So I don't know the pain points anymore. And if I don't know, I don't know. So I do enjoy that feedback. It's one of the reasons I kind of insist on working trade shows. At 12 years, I don't have to go to trade show anymore. I go there for gathering information.
Yeah, but you're hearing it from the dealers. You're hearing it from the folks who really have to interact with this stuff out in the field on a daily basis and deploy it. That really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I get it from them. I get it from the technical director groups. I get it from instructors, and I get it from the reviews I read. This just really helps me drive the direction of curriculum.
That's terrific. Kyle, man, thanks for the time today. Kyle Marls is Manager of Curriculum Development at Crestron. Really appreciate you hanging out with us for a little bit here to talk about this. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Thanks for joining us here on the Smarter Spaces podcast. My name's Ed Wank. Talk to you next time.